We can move on and talk about Tottenham Hotspur, Pete, because there's been some talk about Federico Chiesa, interest in him. What's his valuation in today's market and the current interest situation, please?
Yeah, obviously he's a player who's attracting a lot of interest from a number of clubs. Chiesa, due to his contract situation at Juventus, he's into the final year, and it does seem Juventus will be willing to offload him this summer as well. There has been talk of Tottenham showing interest, but it doesn't look like Tottenham will be following up anything. They were briefing, suggesting that they're not in this race for Federico Chiesa. He's not on their list, so it seems highly unlikely now that Tottenham will be pursuing a move for Chiesa. Top player, in my opinion. I think he showed that at the Euros when Italy won it a few years ago, and he's been playing at the highest level for Juventus, Champions League, Serie A as well. But he's had a few injury problems over the last couple of seasons as well, and that's really hampered his progress. But yeah, again, if you can sign a top Italian international for around £25 million, it's something you'd have to consider. Although it will be lucrative personal terms needed as well. I think he is looking a big deal if he is to make the move away from Juventus. Talk of £8 million a year. So again, there's lots to consider. There's been talk that Chelsea are also looking at him, but I don't know where he fits into that Chelsea team right now. They've got an abundance of wingers at Stamford Bridge as well. So let's wait and see what happens with Chiesa. He could even end up staying at Juventus and running down his contract and leaving on a free. But it does look like Tottenham not sort of considering a move for Chiesa right now, maybe looking elsewhere for a wide forward before the window closes.
Paul, is there any concern about that, given that we've discussed so many times on this pod about Spurs need an out-and-out number 9, they need a real striker to replace Harry Kane. The fact they're looking at versatile forwards, is that a worry for the fan base?
Not when you're looking at players like Chiesa, no. I mean, everything that Pete said there is a quality player at 26 years old, coming out of Juve, and you can pick him up for 25 million euros. In this day and age, it's nothing to bring him into your squad. You look at the likes of, they've got Brennan Johnson, Richarlison in the squad, Kulusevski. In the wide areas, he'd certainly be starting in the team. You look at the quality that he's got. He's not prolific. I mean, he's 54 games for Juve, 11 goals. In Italy, 51 games, 7 goals. So he's not overly prolific, but he's a quality wide forward, creative player. And I think he'd take on the challenge of the Premier League. And I think the way that Spurs play would fit the way that he plays. The system that Tottenham play and the high press and the high tempo, the way that Ange plays. He's a player that I would certainly like to see there. It'd be a top signing. It'd be a real coup. I think the opportunity for Spurs to get him would be Paratici. He'd have to have his fingerprints all over the signing, obviously. But I do think that there'll be plenty of suitors for Chiesa, especially at that price, if he is to leave this summer. But I certainly would be absolutely delighted if he went to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But I think there's legs in this one yet.
Paul, in terms of other talk, we know that there's been contract talks with Oliver Skipp potentially to extend his stay at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What do you make of that? And what do you think his role in the squad is going to be going forwards under Ange if he is to stay?
Well, it doesn't change. He's a squad player. I mean, he's not a regular starter, and I think he knows his role in the squad, and it's down to his own ambition as to what he wants to do. I mean, looking at his stats, he made his debut in 2018, 6 years ago, and he's only played 77 games since. And I suspect that he's probably started half of those. And that role in the Tottenham squad is what he does. He's not at the level that Ange will play him week in and week out, but he's a very reliable, good young player. He's still only 23 years old. He's a good player to have in your squad. And with European football this season, Spurs are going to need a strong squad. And the thing that you get with him is, every time that he goes on the pitch, you're getting a 7 out of 10 performance. Attitude, application, effort is always there. He might not have the quality of other players and he might not be the level of other players, but you know what you're getting when he pulls on a Tottenham shirt. And if he's happy to be part of a squad and to play that type of role, then for Tottenham to sign him on a new deal, it almost seems like a no-brainer, really.
Following on from that, Pete, in terms of exits, we know there's been some talk about Emerson Royale leaving the club. Have you got an update, please, on his future at the club?
Yeah, it looks like Emerson Royale is inching closer to a move away from Tottenham. There has been ongoing talks with AC Milan. Spurs have knocked back a couple of bids, but it does look like Milan are finally getting close to what Spurs are looking for. Emerson Royale, so we're getting probably around £50 million plus, maybe with add-ons, taking it to £20 million, which I think Spurs will accept. And the player obviously is open to that move to Italy as well. He's sort of been in and out of the Spurs team under Ange. He's not first choice for that right back position, with Pedro Porro as the number one right back at the club as well. And as I said, Emerson Royale, he's obviously came close to leaving in January. I think there was interest from the Saudi Pro League in him then, but Spurs decided to keep him then as they were battling for a top 4 place. But it does look like he will finally depart Tottenham this summer. And although he's filled in numerous positions. They're playing at centre back last season as well when they had all those injuries and suspension problems for their regular centre backs. I think it's 3 years he's been at the club now, and obviously the fans did like him. Some fans didn't appreciate him because they felt he was too error-prone and everything else. But yeah, I think it's a good deal for Tottenham. They're getting back most of the money that they paid for him when they signed him from Barcelona, and now they can obviously have Jed Spence coming back from his loan spell last year as cover for Porro at right back. I think Spence has done quite well in pre-season as well and has impressed Ange Postecoglou. So they've got Spence now who can fill in and provide cover for Porro in that right back spot. So yeah, I think Spurs are well covered, and they've also got Archie Gray if they really needed to play at right back, even though they have signed him as a midfielder. So yeah, I think they're well stocked, and to get money for Emerson Royale, it should be a good deal for everybody involved.
And Paul, we know that Brian Hill, he's left for Girona on a loan deal. Do we expect him to leave the club permanently next summer?
Yeah, I think so. It's just not worked for him, has it? I mean, you look at him, he's another addition to that wide attacking area. I don't think his quality's there and his attitude's there. You can see in his performances, but I just think he's just been a little bit too lightweight for the Premier League. He gets knocked off the ball a little bit, and we see that quite often at times with players. Premier League just seems a bit too quick for him. I mean, we always talk about the Premier League being the strongest, fastest, most powerful league in the world, and it is. We've got a fantastic product with the Premier League, but it hasn't settled, and he does look at times. It looks like it's too quick for him, and the game passes him by. He's a player with a lot of quality, a lot of technical ability, but I don't think he has the strength to go with it to play in the Premier League. It was an inevitable move, that, for me.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.